new year is here, and soon state lawmakers will return to the Capitol. This week, we're looking ahead to this year's legislative session, from property taxes to the power grid. We'll get the perspective on the priorities shaping the debate under the dome.
Women set to make history in the Texas House.
The more inclusive a body can be, I think the better results you have because you have more voices at the table.
The next legislature will have more women serving than ever before. We'll meet some of those new lawmakers and how they could change the course at the Capitol.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and Happy New Year. I'm Monica Madden.
I'm Ryan Chandler. Thank you so much for joining us on our first show of 2023. Monica, it's an odd-numbered year. You know what that means?
Legislative session.
In just over a week, lawmakers are returning to the Texas Capitol for a new legislative session, and today we'll be getting some perspectives on the big topics up for debate and how Texans are feeling about the key issues.
One thing that makes this year's session different is the state's financial situation. Lawmakers will start the state budget talks with a record surplus. And back in the summer, State Controller Glenn Hagar predicted lawmakers would have a record $27 billion surplus. Then in November, he hinted the number could actually be much larger. He called it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
We will never again have an annual tax total collection compared to the prior year of 25%. We will not still have some federal money that can be utilized instead of state money for general revenue. So it is going to be a remarkable opportunity because the word that they can't use no. And now they have to prioritize what are those things that we can do in Texas to hopefully make life a little bit better that we have not been tending to. And that mix is going to be a lot of things in the bucket.
Hagar will issue his official revenue projection right before the start of the session. He suggested that the money could help Texas invest in critical infrastructure, things like improving the roads, the electric grid, and expanding high-speed internet connectivity. Hagar said those investments could fuel long-term growth in Texas. Governor Greg Abbott has called for a large part of the surplus to go toward property tax cuts. He campaigned on spending half of the surplus to cut property taxes. That's
also Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's top priority, but it's not quite that simple. State law actually limits how much of the surplus we can spend, and the two leaders have some different approaches to how they want to do that. So I spoke with Lieutenant Governor Patrick about his ideas to reform property taxes and the power grid. Is Governor Abbott going to be able to fulfill his campaign promise to spend half of that surplus on property taxes, or do you have other ideas?
Well, if we have a $27 billion surplus, and I think, again, it's going to be more than that, but half of 27 is 13.
Right.
Well, that's more than we can spend on the constitutional cap. So that would take everything we have. But I agree with the governor in this respect. We need to make property taxes our number one priority. I have since 2007. Before I was even in office, I was at the Capitol fighting for property tax relief. So it has to be our number one area that we focus our money on. I think we can get there in different ways. Again, you could do some things as constitutional amendments. And if you look at the $12 billion that we can spend constitutionally in the budget, well, we're surely going to spend close to half of that on property taxes, I believe. So, and he has other programs that he's requesting money for, billions of dollars to continue the border wall and border security. And so we're going to get there. But Governor Abbott and I are on the same page. The number one issue is getting, when you have a surplus, is getting savings for taxpayers. So we agree on that totally.
You said that we cannot leave the building if another Uri can happen. First of all, that narrative seems to diverge a little bit from the optimistic assessment that Governor Abbott has given. So I'd be interested to hear what the daylight is between you and the governor on this issue. But
yeah, let's not start the session all, since you're covering the Capitol, trying to divide the governor and I, because we're on the same page on almost all these issues. We both want the best grid we can have.
Good.
The reforms that we made in Senate Bill 2 and 3 were good. It got us through the hottest summer we've ever had, or one of the hottest summers, but we need more power. On a really cold day or a really hot day, we can need up to 68 to 75,000 megawatts or more. We don't have that now, dispatchable power. We must build more natural gas plants, maybe hydrogen plants. We're already building some of those, but we must build more natural gas plants, and we have to do that before we leave. It will take 3 years at a minimum to get new plants in the ground up and running. We have to have more dispatchable power that we can rely on for the grid. We're adding 1,000 people a day. Businesses are moving here. More need for the grid to be stronger and more power. And so we have to do that. If we don't do it in this session, that's another 2-year delay. We don't have that time to do that. You have to have enough power that you can count on. Wind is great. Solar's fine. But it's a luxury. It helps the environment, which is not a luxury, but it helps the environment. But it also helps keep our prices down. But I call it a luxury because we can't depend on it.
To what extent do you sacrifice renewable energy and the goals
We're not
that we have
sacrificing
towards
renewable
expanding
energy.
that industry if
Ryan,
you're prioritizing
we're
natural
not
gas?
sacrificing renewable energy. You know who the leader in the country is on renewable energy? Texas. We have more renewable energy than any other state. We're 5th in the world, Ryan. There's the United States as a whole. There's I think China's next, India and Germany, and Texas. So we've invested. The whole point is, in the last 20 years, we put almost all the investments, the federal government, state and local governments, into renewables. And what we found out during Winter Storm Uri is when the wind doesn't blow, when the sun's not out, we didn't have enough natural gas. We had other breakdowns and other problems. But the bottom line is this: if you need 75 or 80,000 megawatts of power, you need those to be secure, dispatchable, natural gas, hydroelectric, coal, or nuclear. That's what you have to have. The wind is great when it's blowing. And I don't think I can say it any simpler than that. We're 5th in the world. Renewables are not going to suffer, but natural gas and dispatchables have suffered for 20 years. And we need to get back to building those plants if we're going to have a secure grid.
You've heard from politicians, but what do Texans think? We'll dig into a new poll that looks into how voters view the top issues facing the state and the people in charge.
First, from budget battles to fights over hot-button issues, lawmakers are gearing up for conflict. Up next, we bring in some experts for insight into what to watch when the session starts.